Wow, at the time of filming this, I have, 12 subscribers. I get excited when I have 20 views on a video. And I don't know if that makes it more or less crazy to me that I'm already talking to you about something as intimate as finances. Looks like we need to talk. Hey you, it's Olivia. So I'm pretty new to this YouTube thing still. My channel is not even quite 10 weeks old, and I mostly focus on like story times about my travels and the fact that I'm a travel nurse. That video that I have a teaser clip from at the beginning was genuinely just something that I put out there for accountability. I know that finances and debt can be a hot topic, and so there's a little potential there, but I was not expecting it to get like literally 2K views. Like, that blew my mind. I remember that weekend watching and being like, wait, we're gonna hit 1K. Wait, we're gonna hit 2K. And the comments. We got so many comments. Some of them, they range all the way to supportive to just mean trolling. But honestly, I appreciate every single one of y'all for the engagement. And I'm just able to take the negativity, like genuine negativity, not constructive. I appreciate constructive always. And the negativity, I'll just take it with stride, and hey, it's engagement, right? But I had a lot of commenters, asking questions about more in-depth financial things and that sort of stuff. So I felt like you guys all deserve a follow-up video, words, which is what we're going to be doing today. I thought I was going to have this out for you last week, but all this math that I did, oh my gosh. I actually structured this somewhat inspired by one of y'all's comments. Shout out to Rob Williams 2410. I have your part of your comment pulled up here, and I'm going to try to put part of it on the screen. Sorry, Mr. Rob Williams. I couldn't put the whole thing because it was kind of long, so I couldn't get a full screenshot by itself. But anyways, you gave me a whole little system of questions that you would like to see answered that also kind of summarized what a lot of other people were asking. So you asked, what is the APR for each item? Calculate the total interest you would pay to make minimum payments versus your current plan to the maximum theoretical possible. What is your debt repayment strategy? Focusing your resources on highest APR debt first, or focusing on working from smallest balance line to the largest? And how are you budgeting? Do you have an emergency fund? And what are your financial goals? I didn't do that last little bit word for word. Sorry about that, Mr. Robin Williams. I'm keeping that in there because it was kind of funny. Rob Williams. Anyways, we're going to be addressing basically all of these besides the calculate total interest. I started doing that, and I had already spent so much time doing all your other points that yeah, that last little bit didn't happen because it was a lot of math. I'm a nurse. I can do basic math. I can calculate your medicines for you and your grandma and everything, but when we start getting into too many like percentages and exponentials and things like that, I can do it. It just takes me time that unfortunately I'm a little bit short on right now. We'll talk a little bit about work and my shovel, but let's do the interest first because I feel like that was the most popular question. Okay, so I have my cute little notebook again, but before we get into my own interest, I just want to have a little chatty time with you guys about something I love to talk about, which is international everything and how things are different in different countries. So kind of crazily, after I put this video out, Angel watches my channel and he saw that one. And for one, we were talking about the fact that neither of us really know how to express a lot of things around debt and owing things in our second languages. And he said he was actually kind of confused, and I think he had to put the Spanish auto subtitles on. But anyways, after watching that video, he's been trying to figure out how he's going to be paying for things over in Europe, because the last time we were there, we learned that his Peruvian debit cards charge insane foreign fees. So he's trying to find ways around it. And one of the things he was thinking about was a credit card. And I did tell him, I'm like, you are very stingy and responsible, so I could see it working for you, but also go watch my video again and take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, because I'm the girl who's $50,000 in debt, largely through credit cards. And then he said, oh, I started looking into some credit cards, and what do you think about these interest rates? Let me just put these on the screen and you can react for yourself. Here they are. If you are like listening to this as a talking head thing, let me give myself a quick little pause so that I can pull up the screenshot on my phone and read them off to you too, because it's crazy. Okay, I'm back. So these Peruvian credit cards, that at least the ones that Angel found and showed me, they went from 75% for the best one to 83.4% for a more entry-level regular one. And just wow. I mean, again, I'm the girl who's $50,000 in debt with a bunch of credit cards, but I looked at those and I said, okay, first, are we misinterpreting something? Because how is this real? And we both like looked into it and made sure that we were translating right so that I understood, and no, that's the APR. That's what it is. And I just told him, I said, no, don't touch that. I said, do not, no. I don't know what he's actually going to end up deciding because it's his life. And again, he is a lot more conservative with his money than me, partially because of, just his background and everything. But still, please, somebody talk to me about this down below, especially if you have any experience in this with credit cards in other countries. Like, is this how it is in other countries? And if so, why does anybody, again, I know, pot kettle, but why does anybody touch these things? Why would you ever, why? Just, that's a nightmare. Okay, we need to take a little breath for a second, and let's talk about my own APRs, which are not nearly as nightmarish. And yes, I might have kind of thrown those in a little bit just so the comparison makes these look a little better. But I know that most of the audience watching at least this video is probably also in the US, so y'all know what normal and good and average is for us. Okay, numbers. So for my student loan, it was a little bit confusing. I'm gonna try and throw up some screenshots of just, the isolated bit talking about the rates here or somewhere on the screen, so be watching out for that. If you're not driving or something, if you're driving, you're just gonna have to listen to me talk. Please drive responsibly. Anyways, so the student loan is a mix of subsidized and unsubsidized, and it was kind of confusing. Again, if you're able to safely look down at it, here's the screenshot. And kind of what I was able to get out of this is that the rates go from 3.8% to 5.1% because it's divided up into multiple itty-bitty loans that were taken out at different times in different chunks. But in the grand scheme of things, this seems pretty low to me and is definitely my lowest rates. It's one of the reasons that I never really prioritized my student loans all that much. I mean, that's really not that much higher than what you could get on investment accounts, Anyways, let's keep going. So the personal loan was 14.36% fixed APR. I did start noticing that there's a difference between fixed and variable APR. I had a hard time, and you can look at the screenshots too when we're about to start talking about the credit cards. I know for sure 2 of the credit cards looked like they were variable, and then on the other one, I wasn't sure. I didn't write it down here either, and I'm not looking at the screenshots. But yeah, we'll just keep that in mind. Anyways, the Capital One is 28.24%, and that is one of my highest interest rates. And then the Discover card is 21.24%. And the Chase is 28.24% like the Capital One. So my highest interest loans / debts are the Capital One and the Chase, and the lowest is my student loans. Everything else is kind of in between. Now, the next thing we were going to start talking about is monthly expenses, because that, determines how much I can actually put towards this debt stuff, right? Now let's talk about another popular question slash topic down in the comment section, monthly expenses. So like I alluded to in my responses to some of y'all's comments, my minimum debt payments are literally my biggest expense. I think they might even be just as much or only slightly less than all my other expenses combined, which is very crazy to think about, I know. So like we talked about in that last video, which by the way, I really encourage you to go watch it after or even before this one for some more context. But all I did really was list off my total debt, which is a little over $50,000. Anyways, the monthly minimum payments that I have to make on that debt is $1,281.50, which, you know, is divided up between all those debts we talked about on the previous slide, which is the student loans, personal loans, and 3 credit cards. Then my rent. So this was something else we talked about a little bit in the comment section, but my rent is divided between 2 different places because I live part-time at my parents'. That's my legal tax home address. As a travel nurse, you have to have a legal tax home to be able to get tax advantage stipends. So I pay like what I find to be a reasonable rent to my parents, and then I also pay rent down here where I'm on assignment right now. My rent is actually it's amazing, but it's because I only rent out rooms. I'm renting a room at my parents' house, and I'm renting a room where I'm on assignment right now, not any total units by myself. Anyways, all that to say that between my 2 places that I'm renting, I pay $500 a month. That's awesome, isn't it? I know that rent prices are insane, and to be honest, I mean, I'm aware of it, but I'm also a little bit disconnected because I haven't lived renting a unit out on my own since I was in Maine in fall of last year. And even then I managed to find myself a roommate, which really helped with expenses because, man, especially when you get outside of the South where I'm from, or even if you get into larger cities down here in the South, it is mind-blowing. I hope y'all are doing okay out there with that. I can see how it can be a real struggle. So related to the rent, there's utilities. I don't pay utilities at my parents'. That just kind of is lumped in with the rent payment I give. But down here, I do pay some utilities that are divided between my roommates and I. The total I pay for my portion of the utilities at my rental on my assignment is about $150 to $200 a month. It varies again because, you know, some of this is how much we have to run the AC or the heater depending on how the weather is, and depending on how many roommates there are at any given time, we might use a little bit more or less water. And also each person's portion is a little bigger or smaller depending on how many roommates there are. Anyways, that's just a nice little estimate that is usually accurate within about $20 to $25. So I have Verizon when I'm here in the States, and as of right now, I also use Verizon with an international plan when I go abroad, but we are looking into more budget-friendly ways to do that in the future because, oh my lord, I paid for 2 Verizon international lines whenever we were doing that 5-month trip, and that was a huge portion. I really would like to do a breakdown someday of how much that trip ended up costing, but that's going to be a lot of research and pulling up old statements at this point because it was all 2+ years ago. We'll see. We'll see if I can actually make that a thing. I'm sure that there's at least some of y'all that would be interested in that. Anyways, back to my phone bill. So my phone is actually paid off. It's a nice Samsung S22. I got it for my second trip down in Peru in 2022 because I realized the Pixel wasn't taking the best pictures and I was about to go see my first world wonder, so I was like, you know what, this is also my camera, or it was. Now I have this beautiful camera that we're using today. But this is the one I always have with me, so I wanted to basically invest in one that was going to be good for good captures, and the camera on here is great. I'm not really an Apple person, but if y'all maybe have a significant other or a close friend that has the newer Apple and y'all have this or vice versa, and you can tell me a little bit more about how it is side to side, I'd be very interested to know about that. Put it down below. But I'm bringing up that this phone is paid off in part so that you know I'm not making payments on it as part of this monthly phone payment, and also just to vent a little because I broke it the other day. I cracked the screen. Can you see? And I was so upset because I've had this phone. Well, actually, I had to get a replacement after Cusco because I cracked the original one. One of these camera lenses actually shattered when I dropped it on a cathedral floor. But after that, I'd had this for a good, gosh, like 2 or 3 years now. Yeah, because Cusco was 2021, not 2022. Psych. But yeah, I've had this all this time. It's been to so many countries with me, and I killed it on my bathroom sink the other day. So we're gonna try to get it to a repair shop because I feel like that would be a lot less than replacing this phone, because I'm not sure that it has insurance on it anymore now that it's paid off. All right, enough rambling about my phone. Let's talk about how much I pay for service a month. With Verizon, I pay $156.30. I do have the maximum package, and part of that, I do justify it because it gives me better service whenever I'm paying the higher thing and when I'm with a bigger carrier like Verizon. And because of the nature of some of the assignments I go to, like Wyoming, and the fact that I'm driving all around the country by myself to get to assignments, I like to know that I have some of the most reliable, largest coverage available. But maybe I'm being a little bit extra with that. I don't know. But that's what I'm paying right now. And then we have car insurance because my car is insured. And I am 26, but it didn't really bring my rate down any when I became like over 25, because I kind of have a bad rap sheet with accidents. My Subaru saved my life when I woke up in a tree one time because I was way too sleepy driving after night shift. I saw that story about the nurse in the parking garage, I think it was maybe a week ago now, and yeah, I relate so hard. It can be really difficult after a long shift to be alert enough to safely get yourself home. So, sleepy driving is bad. Try to pull over, please, for the safety of yourself and others. But related to all that, because I'm not the best driver and I have an accident record plus some speeding tickets, my car insurance is $380 a month with Progressive. Compared to what I hear my parents saying that they're paying for theirs, which is also full coverage on 2 different vehicles, and this is just one vehicle, which is not a newer vehicle by any means, I'm like, ooh. But the nice thing is that's all I do for my car besides paying for occasional oil changes and of course putting gas in it because my car is paid off. Yay, I did that part right? Whenever my Subaru, rest in peace, saved me when I woke up in the tree, it was obviously not drivable anymore. I had just paid it off and I told myself no car payments because this was also whenever I was planning to go down to Cusco. This is why it's great to have an emergency fund because I did have one. So I was able to use that emergency fund to put a down payment down on a new car, which was very difficult to find in 2021. Oh my gosh, we had to go to a whole other city. But I found my little Honda that I have now. It has served me so well. I've had it since 2021. I've been all the way out to Washington, back to the south, up to Wyoming. Well, all the way to Washington, then to Wyoming, then back to the south, then all the way up to Maine and back. And I've had very minor little hiccups with that car. So it was a good investment. It costed less than what insurance paid me out for the Subaru, which is what I was going for. I was trying to get a not same quality car at the expense of that I was able to not have a car payment, which has definitely helped me out. So I don't feel too hypocritical for that little short I made about the cars because I am actually doing that part right, y'all. And then we're on to subscriptions. I should probably start looking into Rocket Money because my subscriptions are a little ridiculous. It looks like, at least from everything I was able to calculate out, It's about $293.89 that I'm paying monthly in subscriptions right now. So that's fun. I know I keep talking about Rocket Money, but if y'all know any other tips or tricks for sorting through subscriptions, please let me know. I really have not looked that much into it. I try to always just do it manually, but obviously I'm not doing the best job keeping up with it right now. So we're gonna need to figure out a different strategy. And that's actually all my monthly expenses. If you were being observant, you might have noticed that I did not list anything about the cost of health insurance or putting things aside for retirement. And yeah, that's because that's not a thing right now. I should be doing better in those departments. It totals out to, let's see, a total of $2,761.69 in fixed expenses per month, which I don't even know if you could say it's all fixed expenses because the subscriptions definitely could be cut. I guess if I really wanted to get aggressive with it, I could also work on the phone bill and the car insurance, although I'm not sure how much the car insurance would really improve for me because, like I said, I'm kind of a crazy driver and have a bit of a record, and I am still relatively young, even though I'm over that 25 mark now. So that's fixed. And what I usually try to do for my budgeting is I go ahead and whenever I get paid, which is every Friday, yay me, I love travel nursing for that too. But I try to go ahead and, portion everything out for that week and put everything that's going to be put away or paid into whatever fixed expenses there are, and only leave in my checking account what I'm giving as like an allowance for myself for any other variable expenses. So basically, gas, food, whatever else is going on. And I usually give myself a $250 to $450 allowance per week for that kind of thing, which equals out to total monthly expenses of $3,761.69 up to $4,561.69. So that's about where my monthly expenses are in theory. I had started tracking to do a little short of, what I spent in a month, and I did not get all that math together. Maybe in the future we can do something that sort of style. Let me know if y'all want a breakdown of what I spent in July, and I'll try to make it happen for you. I appreciate your engagement, your views, and your interest, even if it makes me feel a little bit embarrassed sometimes. But to say all that, my monthly expenses with those variables put in should theoretically be between $3,761.69 up to $4,561.69. But how much does any of that mean if we don't know as Dave Ramsey calls it, the shovel, to be paying those debt payments and everything? So let's talk about how big of a shovel I have. If you watch my travel nurse series, thank you so much for being so engaged and interested. I hope you enjoyed that. If you don't watch it and you want to check it out, I'll put the link down there in the description and also over here. But don't click away yet, please. We're about to talk about income, and this is about as transparent as we're probably going to get with income, like more so than I do in the travel nurse series. But on that note, I am currently on a contract. And for those of you who don't watch my travel nurse series, I am very conservative and careful about not saying specific numbers with my contract rates. There are spaces and places that myself and other travel nurses talk about that, and you might even be able to find some girls out there on YouTube and other places very openly talking about it. But because when I talked to my agency, I did not get explicit permission from them to say specific numbers, we're staying away from that. So I actually have 2 jobs right now. And I'm not talking about YouTube because this is just a hobby right now. It'll stop being a hobby if I ever, got monetized or started getting sponsorships or anything like that. But for right now, this is just a fun little hobby to share my life. Like genuinely. With some potential, Anyways, my 2 income generating jobs right now are both nursing related. My current contract is close enough to my hometown that I was able to pick up a PRN, which for those of you who aren't, healthcare based or just don't work in an industry where there's the term PRN, that basically is like a step down from part-time. So you don't get any kind of benefits at all, and you usually get paid a little bit more because you're not getting any benefits. And it used to be that PRN meant you showed up once or twice a month. Basically, there's a lot less time commitment too. But nowadays, at least in this region, both where my contract is and up in Tennessee where I'm from, I'm finding that PRN contracts really mean at least a once a shift weekly commitment, which I know you're probably like, that's not that much. But compared to what PRN used to mean, it kind of is. Anyways, all of that to say that because I have 2 jobs, I can lump them together to a nice round number to where there's not really any way to calculate out explicitly what my hourly rates or anything are on this contract, but you still get a good idea of what I have coming in, so you can get an idea of what I have coming out means, because it's all contextual to income, right? But I will give some context about how much I've been working, because I want to be transparent with that too. I think I talked a little bit in my last chapter about my main contract, that it was a little bit depressing, and one of the things I did to cope with that was I was working literally 72 to 90 hours a week, which means every day because we have 12-hour shifts, and it was definitely insane. I am a workaholic by nature. I know you might not believe that because I also play very hard and go on these super long, crazy trips. But when I am here in the States, that's what I'm doing. And I do work in a profession that is very conducive to being able to be a workaholic if you want to be. Right now, I'm doing, between my 2 jobs, about 60 hours a week total. I was doing 72. At the time I started YouTube, for the first month or so, I was a month into a 72-hour a week work schedule between 2 cities that are non-commutable distance apart. Non-commutable is a travel nurse term for you have to be a certain distance away, so that basically, in theory, you couldn't reasonably be going to a 12-hour shift every day from your tax home from that assignment. I think it's measured in miles. I'm going to put a little disclaimer down here because, for one, this changes all the time and I'm not an expert in it. I always just make sure I'm good and far away. And right now that means almost a 5 or so hour drive. So, you can imagine how that works out. 60 hours in the actual hospital, hospitals, 72 for one portion. Oh, it's making my brain tired just thinking about it. I am glad that this is going to be over soon in September. But I did decide, I was wanting to drop the hours even a little bit more than I have, because I wanted to be able to start going to the gym. Because honestly, right now I genuinely don't have space. All the spare space I have is committed to this little hobby that I'm building, or doing basic life things like cooking, eating, sleeping, and showering. My free time is negative right now. And I really, really wanted to start working out again so that I can enjoy the hikes and everything in Iceland more. But that last video kind of made me realize I probably can't afford that. I can't really afford to go to Iceland either, but I'm not giving that up. But I'll at least give the gym up, and we'll just try to take the stairs every day I go to work, I guess, which is almost every day. So at least I'll be going upstairs. One of my assignments is over 5 stories up, so it's a lot of stairs. It'll be something, right? All right, let's quit rambling and get right into this. Just generalized out and rounded within, we'll say within $250, my post-tax income after this recent hour drop that I've done to keep myself a little bit sane and rested is, let me look at you for this, $11,000 a month. And I know I'm stuttering a little bit saying that, but it's because I know that this figure gives a lot of context. I feel like it helps kind of explain why I do have a little bit of this blasé attitude towards a pretty large debt payment. I mean, I'm a little bit disconnected from what normal rent is, but I think that my monthly debt payments might be some people's rent, even for people living independently, depending on what part of the country you're in. And I mean, you saw how low my overhead is, and that my income relative to that, and this is an income that I've gotten pretty accustomed to. I am I don't know if it's exactly this high all the time. I would have to go back historically and like examine things a little bit more. I do work for it. Again, I'm a workaholic, and I am a nurse, so that's a skilled job. And I'm a travel nurse, so there's a little bit of tax advantage and income advantage that comes into that, plus extra expenses because you're moving more frequently. I'm getting a little bit rambly. The point of this is to say I do have an abnormally high income bracket when I am working. It's funny, actually, I like to listen to a lot of talking head videos whenever I'm driving between my assignment home and my tax home. And I discovered this girl, and if you see this video, oh my gosh, hi, thank you for watching this video. I don't know why you would. You do talk about people doing dumb stuff with money though, and so maybe I'm in that category now. But she seems like her stuff is more from like people doing shorts and TikTok versus long form videos like this. Anyways, girl's name is I think it's Simone. And I like her personality. She's got a really fun, I don't know how to say it. It's almost like she's kind of spicy and like in a really good way. And she did, I think it was actually a live just yesterday, yesterday from the time of filming this. It was on a Monday, or no, it was on a Tuesday. Night shift brain, y'all. If you work night shift and you get that whole disoriented about what day of the week it is too, just put me a little moon emoji down below, please. Like the moon in the sky, not any weird stuff with peaches. But, you know, if you put peaches down there, you'll probably just make me laugh. So it's okay either way. All the cute emojis down below, please. Anyways, Miss Social Simone put a live out that's called You Aren't Really Broke, Your Avocado Toast Broke. And looking at this with my income and how people were telling me down in the comments that I'm broke, it's like, yes, but it's definitely avocado toast broke, because what the debt payments that I'm making are for some very non-essential things that were choices that I made, and also it's not impacting me the same way that payments that size or even half the size would be impacting someone in a different income bracket. I mean, I'm not living like I'm at the income bracket that I make, because between the debt payments and trying to keep my overhead low to be able to keep doing trips, you wouldn't know it by just seeing my day-to-day life. But that's it, y'all. I make $11,000 a month. I'm not living like somebody who makes $11,000 a month post-tax. But that's from a combination of debt payments that somebody living this lifestyle that I'm living or something similar for my low overhead, because that's where their income's at. If they were making the kind of debt payments I was making, I realized that would be literally crippling, up to impossible for them. So I want to be sensitive towards that if we're making comments about, you know, me being broke and everything, because yes, but also not in the same way that other people are. But I'm not really I'm not really living anywhere close to like how someone making $11,000 a month could be living. And that's a combination of the minimum monthly debt payments and keeping my overhead low to keep going on trips. We will talk a little bit more about my lifestyle. I know I did that little Walmart haul, and yes, that's part of why I do groceries at Walmart. And also that's just kind of what I grew up with, so that's what I know. I feel really bougie even just going to Publix, if you're from the part of the country that you know what Publix is. I don't live paycheck to paycheck, even with those giant debt payments. Actually, let's talk for a second about my, I would say like weekly income. So I do put a certain percentage away automatically for money that I'm saving up to have set aside while I have no income whenever I'm traveling. We'll talk about that here in a second in a savings section. But just mentioning that briefly here to give context that it's not going to math perfectly when I say this weekly number, but weekly post-tax, post-percentage set aside for the somewhat near future is about $2,500 to $2,600 a week. I know. And so when you break that down, I still have quite a bit of just like extra free money to save or put away towards debt after the basics are paid, which is great. I'm very happy to be in that sort of position, and it's probably part of what makes me a little bit more numb / chill about all of this versus if I don't know if there's such a thing as a normal income, but making more like what some other people struggling in debt make. So yeah, I do just want to keep it real here about how much I make. I did post the last video to stay transparent, and I feel like I did see some, comments saying, hey, I relate. Maybe I did lose a couple of relatability points because of that crazy income, and that's okay. I would rather you know the full, real picture story. And I'm proud of what I've done to make my income like that, because my job contributes a lot to society. It's not an easy job, and I had to get some pretty intense education before I got there. But yeah, I just wanted to put that out there too, so we're being perfectly transparent. I feel like it gives a much fuller picture compared to last week just being like, oh my gosh, 2 weeks ago, oh my gosh, I am paying $1,200, almost $1,300 a month in debt payments, because depending on your income, that can mean very different things and have a very different vibe. So now we have the full picture there. Also, to give a little bit of context, this contract, which of course is a huge chunk of this pie, although we are not explicitly saying how much, is going to be ending in September because I can't come back to it after I get back from my next international trip. So my income will be changing drastically as well, and it's impossible for me to know exactly how much it'll be. The reason I have 2 jobs right now is, well, one, my current contract isn't really giving me the overtime I was wanting, so I looked other places for that. And I wanted to go ahead and have something lined up for when I got back from this trip, because it doesn't make sense on the timeline of my big trip to take another contract, so I went with the PRN option instead, and I just can always have overtime that's very readily available at the hospital up in my hometown. So that's the strategy. Moving on, let's talk about savings, because I mentioned I'm not living paycheck to paycheck, which probably means I have an emergency fund, right? Let's talk a little bit more about it. Okay, let's talk about savings. We'll start with my biggest savings, which of course is for the giant trip. It is stalled for right now. I haven't been putting anything aside for it since pretty much the beginning of the summer, because I started putting savings into the Iceland mini trip I'm doing. Anyways, the big trip has $20,000 saved up for it so far, and that is just to spend while I'm there. So, any plane tickets, hotels, food, and general cost of living on the ground over there. And then I have an additional $10,000 saved up for that basic cost of living fund I was telling you about, where, you know, any of my recurring monthly payments that I need to keep paying while I'm abroad, I'm going to try to set everything up on auto pay so it just immediately comes out, and I'll just be keeping an eye on it. And if we still have things planned for the trip, but I get down below 1 month's worth of, you know, bare minimum expenses plus a good $500 to $600, I call moving slash settling back in fee, I'll go ahead and, at least I'm telling myself, I'll go ahead and cut things short and head back home so that I still have that little emergency buffer to fall back onto. And I'm hoping to turn that into a little bit more than 10,000, but now I'm also debating just trying to put that money into aggressively paying the debt down a little bit more so that the monthly stuff coming out is less, which makes it stretch longer. Especially now that I'm trying to consider a little bit more how interest works, because it's definitely not growing as much as the debts are growing with the interest rates on savings accounts. As of right now, if I did my math right, because of course some of these monthly expenses that I'm doing, like utilities and my extra rent, aren't going to be a thing while I'm abroad, I think I should be good for about a 4 months trip with current calculations. But we'll see. Maybe I can get the debt payments down a little bit and it'll be more. And then I do have an emergency savings. When I checked it last, which was at the beginning of this week, it had $3,800, which it still has $3,800 because I haven't had to take anything out, luckily. Ideally, I would like to have about $4,500 in there, because that would be a month's expenses plus a little bit of wiggle room. That was something we talked about Dave Ramsey earlier on today, and also in the last video and down in the comment section. That's something I do not agree with him on anymore. The $1,000 emergency fund, I'm like, that is not enough for hardly anything anymore. That definitely needs to be adjusted for today's everything. It made sense when he made it, but nowadays I would rather say base it on your monthly expenses, and you know, have at least, depending on your job stability, X amount of, or X months worth of expenses, you know? Y'all let me know your comments down, or your opinions down in the comments below. And like I mentioned, I've already saved up $10,000 for Iceland. That is my budget for the whole thing. That's going to include the big transport items, so you know, flights and stuff for 2 people. It's going to include me going down to Lima first, and then both of us flying out to Europe. And also, you know, renting a vehicle while we're up in Iceland. We'll see. I think it's an ambitious budget because it's going to be almost 3 weeks in Europe for $10,000 for 2 people with flights included in that price. But I'm looking forward to making the video telling you how I did it. Related to that trip, starting next paycheck, I'm going to need to be putting money aside to plan for 3 weeks without income, because that's the downside to the type of work I do. I get paid more, but there's no such thing as PTO or anything like that. You have to be putting some of that extra pay aside for when you're not working and there's not income coming in if you want to have time off. I'm planning for about a $3,000 goal with that. Now let's just talk about, you know, general plan of action. Alright, so like I said, we are going to Iceland in September. I'm going to be going with my travel companion, Angel, from down in Peru, because he's amazing and we have to go see the Northern Lights together. Iceland was the country that I had to cut out from the big trip because I had maxed out my credit card, and we are finally going 2 years later. It is happening. This year is supposed to be the best year for Northern Lights for the next, what, like 20 years or something. So yeah, I'm doing it. Nothing's going to stop me. So in order to start preparing for that $3,000, I want to have set aside before I get off in mid-September to go to Iceland. I'll be putting aside $500 each paycheck or each week starting August the 2nd, because this past paycheck that I got the last week of July is going to go towards any kind of like travel supplies I need. Like I think I'm going to end up needing to get another backpack and maybe a couple of extra warm weather clothes, or sorry, cool weather clothes, because I am in a more warm weather area and I just need to see if there's anything missing from the stuff I was using when we were in Sweden. So when I did my calculations after that $500 that I'm immediately going to be taking out to make sure that I have enough money set aside for the time I don't have income, I'll have about $1,300 a week to be playing with and living off of. Alright, so let's talk about the debt payoff strategy that many of you guys were talking about. I did see the snowball mentioned multiple times, and I'm thinking to kind of start in that style and then base it off interest plus how much is owed. So the capital one is actually itty bitty. If you guys remember, it's only like $1,000, maybe a little bit more or a little bit less now since my last payment I made on it. So that can get knocked out real quick. I could actually just go ahead and finish paying that off August 2nd and live off my little bitty allowance after that. Then for the rest of August, I'll have 4 paychecks and I can do $300 a week to Chase for $1,200 total. $300 a week to the emergency fund because I do want to beef that up a little bit more, especially since I am going to, I shouldn't have much income uncertainty, but we don't know exactly how it's going to change once I get back from Iceland, so just to give myself a little bit extra buffer while I work that whole situation out. And then $200 a week for the big trip. Now, originally I wanted to put all of this towards the big trip, but publishing that video did force me to give myself a little wake-up call. And like I was talking about, even if I'm trying to rationalize for the big trip, it makes sense to make the debt payments smaller, so it's one less thing that could potentially get in the way of me being able to stay out of the country longer, right? So $200 a week for that big trip, which will only be $800 total. But it's still something. And then for September, I'm planning for 3 weeks of pay. Usually for my last paycheck, which I think this is how I calculated it out here, I never bank on the last paycheck, and if/when it comes in, because it always has, but you know, I just like to give myself a little buffer there and assume the last paycheck won't be there. But assuming these 3 weeks of pay, I'm planning to put $500 a week to the Chase for $1,500 total, and $300 a week to the large trip, which will be $900 total. So that'll total out to $2,700 extra paid off from Chase. And I'm going to still be making my regular payments, which are a little bit more than the minimum to try to keep up with interest. So with all that, the Chase should be down to about $11,600, give or take. I didn't factor interest into this, but I also think that making payments that often will help keep up with the interest. Anyways, Mr. Rob Williams, I probably should have done your your second little math assignment. I would know more about this number in that case, but we'll go with saying about $11,600 total and left in the Chase, which is pretty significant. It'll definitely drop that minimum payment down and the interest by quite a bit. And $5,000 emergency savings and an extra $1,700 to the big trip. It's little, but it's not nothing. And yeah, there's a more in-depth dive into my finances. I am so happy if you came back as a follow-up, irregardless of what tone you're watching in, because I enjoy the engagement and I am able to look at even the negativity in a positive lens because it's kind of kicking me in the butt to get a little bit more into action with it. And I especially want to thank the people who are both constructive and kind about it while keeping it real. Like, y'all are the OGs. Sorry if I was a little bit like rocky and giggly and like bouncing around during this one. I'm not going to lie, because I am anticipating a little bit more audience with this being a follow-up to literally my most popular video on the channel right now. I'm kind of catching myself in that spot where I'm anticipating comments and reactions, and it makes me a little bit more nervous and brings back the camera shyness that I had been a little bit conquering. But if you are watching till here, that means that you bared with it with me, bared through it with me, and I am so grateful to you. You should definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You can learn all about this crazy lifestyle I'm leading, and I am going to be taking you along for all kinds of international adventures. Oh, and if you're interested in the finance side, we're going to be talking about this super cheap rental I have on my assignment. I am paying $200 a month, y'all. So if you want to hear about my $200 a month rental, make sure you're subscribed with the bell. You'll be getting a notification here in the next week or two with a nice little house tour of my filming area and everywhere else. Maybe you'll even meet my roommates. Probably not, because they're camera shy, but we can talk about them a little bit. In any case, I hope that the rest of your week is so beautiful. I am so happy to have had you here today, and see you next time. Bye! Oh, you are good you stuck around for the bonus scene. So, since you're here for the bonus scene, we're going to commit a little internet sin of feeding the trolls a little bit. Thanks for all your engagement on my video, by the way, little Mr. Troll. I think I saw like 5 comments from you, and there was something brought up about my credit score. So I'm gonna just go ahead and put it out there. One of the nice things about my credit cards is they do give me credit reports as far as what my score is. I think it's all my FICO score. I don't know too much about the different agencies. I used to have Credit Karma, but now I just kind of peek at what my credit cards are telling me. And between my 3 credit cards that have balances on them, they are saying between 660 to 688, but 2 of them said 660, so we'll go with that, which my understanding is that's about average. It's definitely not what my score used to be before the big trip. I used to be in the low 700s, if I remember right. It was definitely in the 700s though, and I would love to see myself back there at some point. It seems like the biggest thing hurting me is the revolving utilization. One of my credit cards said that my revolving utilization right now is about 55%. So, but the more I pay my cards down, the lower that'll get and the higher my score will get. And as long as I'm paying on time. So that's good, right? And Mr. Troll, just to let you know, I am pretty sure that my IQ is not 660, unfortunately. I would totally be some kind of superhero curing cancer and doing all kinds of other things. I would have found some kind of crazy way to fund myself traveling the world without going into that kind of debt. But yes, thank you so much for sticking around all the way to the very end. Here's your invitation to be one of my new internet besties. And I hope you have such an awesome weekend, internet bestie. And please come back tomorrow, Friday, for the next installment of my international series. And maybe check out my travel nurse series too. We'll be doing the last story this Monday, because I will be talking about the assignment I'm at right now. I can't believe it's already that time. Wow. Well, I'll see you next time. Bye.